Welcome back to Zarila HOA Stories. Drop your country or city name in comment. Chapter 1 of The Dream Home. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving Sarah and Daniel standing in front of their new house. A white fence framed the yard, the grass freshly cut, the air carrying the soft scent of spring. Sarah gripped Daniel's arm, her eyes wide with hope. "It's perfect," she whispered. Daniel smiled, brushing the sweat from his forehead. "Finally. Our place. Our fresh start." Neighbors peeked from windows. A few waved politely. Sarah waved back, eager to make friends. She had always believed in community, in helping each other, in smiling when you crossed paths on the street. This place looked safe, clean, welcoming. But not everyone waved. Across the street, on a porch painted a spotless shade of cream, stood a woman in a blazer far too formal for a weekend morning. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She simply watched. "That her?" Sarah asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "Mrs. Caldwell, HOA president." Sarah swallowed. "She looks strict." "She's just doing her job," Daniel said, though his tone lacked conviction. By evening, they were unpacking boxes in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Sarah opened the door to find Mrs. Caldwell standing there, clutching a leather binder. Her expression was polite but sharp, like a smile carved from stone. "Welcome to Willow Creek," Mrs. Caldwell said. "I'm the HOA president. I like to meet newcomers personally. Helps avoid misunderstandings." She handed Sarah a thick folder, heavy with printed pages. "Your rulebook. Every homeowner must follow these to maintain community standards." Sarah forced a smile. "Of course. Thank you." Mrs. Caldwell's eyes flicked over Sarah's shoulder into the house, scanning the boxes, the half-open curtains. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Some people think of this neighborhood as casual. It is not. Rules matter here. Break them and you'll hear from me. I don't enjoy confrontation, but I never look away." The warning settled like a shadow across the doorway. Sarah nodded quickly. "We'll be careful." Mrs. Caldwell's lips curved into a thin smile. "See that you are." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking like a gavel on pavement. Later that night, Sarah sat at the dining table flipping through the rulebook. Page after page listed restrictions. Paint colors, lawn length, holiday decoration limit. Even the type of flowers allowed in front gardens. "This is a lot," she murmured. Daniel leaned over her shoulder. "Don't worry about it. We'll follow what we can. No big deal." But Sarah's eyes lingered on one line. All landscaping must be approved in advance by the board. She closed the book, uneasy. The next morning, Sarah stepped onto the porch with a mug of coffee. Sunlight spilled over the quiet street. She noticed neighbors trimming hedges, sweeping sidewalks, even measuring grass with rulers. She shook her head. "This place takes neatness too seriously," she muttered. Still, she felt determined. She wanted her new home to shine. That afternoon, she drove to the nursery and returned with bright flowers, tulips, petunias, and marigolds. She knelt in the soil, planting row after row with care. Neighbors slowed as they passed, admiring her work. A woman smiled and said, "Beautiful flowers. Makes the street brighter." Sarah's heart lifted. "See? They like it." When Daniel came outside, he froze, then chuckled. "You really went all in, huh?" "I just wanted to make it ours," Sarah said, brushing dirt from her hands. Daniel kissed her forehead. "Looks amazing. Caldwell can't complain about beauty." Sarah smiled, reassured. But across the street, she noticed a curtain move. Someone was watching. That night, Sarah drifted to sleep with the image of her flowers glowing under the porch light. She dreamed of neighbors gathering, complimenting her garden, making her feel welcome. But the next morning, her dream shattered. Daniel opened the mailbox on his way to work and returned with an envelope. His brow furrowed as he tore it open. "Sarah, you need to see this." She took the letter, her fingers trembling as she read aloud. "Notice of violation. Unauthorized landscaping. Fine. $500. Her face went pale. "What? Already? I planted them yesterday. Daniel's jaw clenched. This is ridiculous. Sarah's stomach twisted. She glanced at the flowers, still fresh with dew, so innocent. And then her eyes flicked to the house across the street. Mrs. Caldwell's blinds shifted closed. Sarah's breath caught. She was watching us. Chapter 2: The First Warning. The letter shook in Sarah's hands. She read it again and again, hoping the words would change. Unauthorized landscaping. Fine. $500. Her throat tightened. $500? 4 flowers. Daniel snatched the paper, scanning the lines. His face darkened. They can't be serious. They are, Sarah whispered. Her knees felt weak. She sat at the edge of the porch, staring at her tulips glowing in the sun. Just hours ago they made her proud. Now they mocked her. Daniel crumpled the letter in his fist. This is nonsense. Everyone else has flowers. Maybe I should pull them out, Sarah said, her voice trembling. He turned sharply. No. You did nothing wrong. Don't let her scare you. That evening, Sarah walked down the street, trying to calm herself. She noticed details she hadn't before. Mrs. Green had roses planted near her driveway. The Wilsons had bright sunflowers swaying in their yard. No fines taped to their doors. Why me? Her steps slowed as she passed Mr. Lopez, the middle-aged man who lived 2 houses down. He was trimming his hedges, humming softly. Evening, Sarah, he said kindly. Settling in okay? Sarah forced a smile. Not really. I got fined for planting flowers. Mr. Lopez's face tightened. He lowered his voice. Already? That's fast. You sound like you expected it, she said cautiously. He hesitated, glancing toward Mrs. Caldwell's house. The blinds twitched as if someone inside was listening. He leaned closer. She does this. Pick someone new to make an example out of. Don't take it personal. Sarah's chest sank. But I didn't break any rule. Mr. Lopez looked away. Rules don't matter when she decides. Her heart thudded. Before she could ask more, his wife called from inside, and he quickly excused himself. Sarah walked home in silence, the weight of his words pressing down on her. At dinner, she pushed food around her plate. Daniel watched her carefully. You're still upset, he said. How can I not be? Everyone else has flowers. She singled me out. Mr. Lopez basically admitted it. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes hard. Then we fight back. Sarah shook her head. What if it gets worse? She runs this place. Everyone's scared of her. Let her try, Daniel said. I'm not scared. Sarah wished she could share his confidence. But later that night, lying awake in bed, she replayed Mrs. Caldwell's voice in her head. Break the rules, and you'll hear from me. The next morning, Sarah decided to face it directly. She printed photos of her flowers, highlighted the pages of the rulebook that showed nothing against planting them, and walked to the community hall where the HOA board met every Wednesday. Daniel offered to come, but she shook her head. I need to do this myself. Inside, the room was small and sterile, long tables, cold chairs, papers stacked high. A few neighbors sat quietly, avoiding eye contact. At the head sat Mrs. Caldwell. She looked up slowly as Sarah entered. Her thin smile was more threatening than kind. Mrs. Parker, she said smoothly. I was expecting you. Sarah swallowed, forcing strength into her voice. I got a violation. But I didn't break any rules. Others have flowers. Why me? Mrs. Caldwell tilted her head as if studying a child. You planted without approval. That's the rule. You're new here. You'll learn. I read the book. It doesn't say I can't plant flowers, Sarah shot back. Mrs. Caldwell chuckled softly, the sound dripping with condescension. It says all landscaping must be approved. Approval is everything. Sarah's hands trembled, but she pressed on. Then why aren't others fined? The room grew still. A board member shuffled papers. Another cleared his throat nervously. No one met Sarah's eyes. Mrs. Caldwell's smile never wavered. We review cases individually. It's not your concern how others are handled. Pay the fine and this will go away. Sarah's cheeks burned with humiliation. Her voice cracked. This isn't fair. Mrs. Caldwell leaned forward, her eyes sharp as glass. Life isn't fair, dear. But rules keep us civilized. Break them and there are consequences. Do you understand? The words hit like a slap. Sarah clenched her fists, tears stinging her eyes. She wanted to scream, but the cold silence of the room pressed down on her. Everyone was watching, waiting for her to fold. Her voice was barely a whisper. I understand. Outside, Sarah stumbled into the parking lot, her chest heaving. She sat on the curb, burying her face in her hands. When Daniel found her, she was shaking. He knelt beside her. What happened? She humiliated me. In front of everyone. They all just sat there. No one defended me. Daniel's jaw tightened. He pulled her close. Then I will. Sarah looked at him, eyes wide with fear. Don't, please. She'll make it worse. But Daniel's voice was steady, cold. She's not untouchable. If she wants to play games, I'll show her we can play too. Sarah's stomach dropped. Daniel, what are you planning? He stood, his shadow stretching across the pavement, his eyes locked on Caldwell's house in the distance. You'll see, he said. Chapter 3, Public Embarrassment. The next few days were heavy with silence. Sarah avoided the porch where her flowers bloomed. Every time she looked at them, her stomach twisted. Neighbors still walked by, some glancing, some whispering. She could feel it, the weight of judgment, the pity in their eyes. By Friday, another letter arrived. Daniel tore it open. His voice shook with anger as he read. Reminder: failure to pay fine will result in escalating penalties. Sarah pressed her palms against her eyes. I can't go to another meeting. I can't sit there while she laughs at me. Daniel dropped the paper onto the table. Then I'll go. I'll say what you couldn't. No, Sarah whispered. It'll only make her target us more. Daniel leaned across the table, his voice low but firm. She already has. That evening, the community gathered at the hall again. The air was stiff, every chair neatly aligned. Board members sat in a row like judges. Mrs. Caldwell, at the center, wore her usual polished smile. When Sarah and Daniel walked in, murmurs rippled through the crowd. People turned in their seats, some curious, others uncomfortable. Sarah sat down, her hands clenched tight in her lap. Daniel remained standing. Mrs. Caldwell tapped her pen against the table. Let's begin. First on the agenda, landscaping violations. Mrs. Parker, would you care to explain why your fine has not been paid? All eyes turned to Sarah. Her cheeks flushed. She opened her mouth but no sound came out. Daniel's voice cut through the silence. Because it's unfair. Mrs. Caldwell's smile twitched. Unfair? The rule is clear. Landscaping requires approval. Daniel crossed his arms. Then explain why others have flowers, shrubs, even fountains, without fines. A murmur spread through the room. A few neighbors nodded in agreement. Mrs. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. That's irrelevant. We handle cases individually. Daniel's tone sharpened. No. It's not irrelevant. It's favoritism. You punish some and ignore others. Gasps fluttered through the audience. Mrs. Caldwell's calm mask cracked for a moment. Then she leaned forward, her voice cutting like ice. Careful, Mr. Parker. Accusations without proof are dangerous. Daniel didn't flinch. So is abusing power. Sarah's heart pounded. She tugged at his sleeve. Daniel, stop, she whispered. But Mrs. Caldwell raised her hand. The room fell silent. Enough. This discussion is closed. The fine stands. If it is not paid within 10 days, further action will be taken. Her gavel hit the table with a sharp crack. After the meeting, Sarah hurried out, her face burning with shame. Whispers followed her down the hall. She should have known better. Why pick a fight with Caldwell? Brave but stupid. She rushed to the car, fighting tears. Daniel followed, his steps heavy, his jaw tight. He didn't speak until they were driving home. "She's protecting her friends," he muttered. "Did you see how nervous the other board members looked? They know." Sarah stared out the window. "Daniel, please. Just let it go." "I can't," he said. "She thinks she's untouchable. But she's sloppy. I'll find proof." "Proof?" He glanced at her. His eyes were dark, steady. "If she's breaking her own rules, I'll catch her. Then she won't be able to hide." That night, Sarah sat at the kitchen table while Daniel flipped through the HOA handbook again. He scribbled notes, circling phrases, underlining rules. "She says landscaping needs approval." "Fine. But look here, it doesn't say how. No form, no process. That's deliberate. Gives her power to decide who's guilty and who isn't." Sarah's hands trembled. "Even if you're right, what can we do?" Daniel leaned back, staring toward the window, toward the house across the street. Mrs. Caldwell's porch light glowed like a watchtower in the dark. "She thinks no one's watching her," he said softly. "But she's wrong." The next morning, Sarah opened the curtains. Across the street, Mrs. Caldwell was chatting with Mr. Wilson. His grass was overgrown, his driveway littered with tools. No violation notice taped to his door. No letters in his mailbox. Sarah whispered to herself, "She doesn't touch her friends." When Daniel came into the room, she pointed. "Look, Wilson breaks rules every day. No fines. Nothing." Daniel's lips tightened. "Exactly what I thought." He put on his jacket, his expression hard. "Next meeting, I'll be ready. If she won't admit the truth, I'll make her expose herself." Sarah grabbed his arm. "What do you mean?" Daniel looked down at her, his voice low. "I'm going to record them." Chapter 4 of The Secret Plan. Sarah could not sleep. Daniel's words from the night before kept circling in her head. "I'm going to record them." She tossed and turned, listening to the steady sound of his breathing beside her. He seemed calm. Too calm. By morning, she sat at the table with her coffee untouched, staring at her flowers through the window. Beautiful, innocent, yet the cause of so much humiliation. Daniel came in, buttoning his shirt, his phone in his hand. "Don't do it," she said quickly. He glanced at her. "Sarah, they'll find out. They'll retaliate. You don't know how far she'll go." Daniel set his phone down on the table. "That's exactly why I have to do it. We can't keep living in fear." Sarah shook her head, her voice cracking. "I don't want to lose this house. We worked so hard." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. His eyes were steady, unwavering. "You won't lose it. I promise. But if we don't stop her, she'll keep coming after us. And the neighbors too. Someone has to stand up." Sarah stared into his eyes, torn between fear and hope. Finally, she whispered, "Just be careful." That evening, the community hall buzzed with quiet conversation. Sarah sat stiffly beside Daniel. He looked calm, but she knew the truth. His phone was hidden in his jacket pocket, already recording. Mrs. Caldwell entered, heels clicking like a clock striking doom. She took her seat at the head of the table, her eyes scanning the crowd. When they landed on Sarah and Daniel, her smile curved thinly. "Let's begin," she said. The meeting started with small issues: parking complaints, lawn lengths, holiday decorations. The board members droned on, shuffling papers, nodding obediently at everything Mrs. Caldwell said. Daniel sat perfectly still, hands folded, as though nothing was unusual. But Sarah could feel the tension in him. She could hear his heartbeat in her own ears. Then came the moment. Mrs. Caldwell flipped through her binder. Next item, violation follow-up. Mrs. Parker's fine remains unpaid. Every head turned toward Sarah again. Her cheeks burned, but she stayed silent. She could feel Daniel's hand rest lightly on hers, not to comfort, but to remind her, "Stay calm." One board member, Mr. Jenkins, cleared his throat. I thought we might reconsider the amount. 500 seems high." Mrs. Caldwell's eyes cut to him, sharp as a blade. The rules are clear. No exceptions. We must show consistency. Daniel spoke suddenly. Consistency? Or favoritism? The room went still. Mrs. Caldwell's smile froze. Excuse me. Daniel leaned back, his tone calm, almost casual. You find my wife for flowers. Yet the Wilsons have tools scattered all over their driveway, and the Greens have a rose garden that was never approved. No fines. Why is that? A ripple of whispers moved through the room. Mrs. Caldwell's voice hardened. This is not the time for baseless accusations. Daniel tilted his head. Baseless? Or inconvenient? Her jaw tightened. Mr. Parker, if you continue this, you will be removed. Daniel smiled faintly. Go ahead. But I think the neighbors deserve to know why some rules matter and others don't. Sarah's heart pounded. She wanted to pull him out of the room, but something in her chest stirred. Pride, anger, relief that someone was finally saying what she couldn't. Mrs. Caldwell turned to the board. Ignore this. Let's move on. But Daniel's phone, hidden and running, captured every word. The meeting dragged on. Sarah barely heard the rest. She sat frozen, every muscle tight, praying no one noticed the small glowing screen peeking from Daniel's jacket. At last, Mrs. Caldwell banged her gavel. Meeting adjourned. Chairs scraped, neighbors whispered, papers shuffled. As people filed out, Sarah gripped Daniel's arm. Did you get it? She whispered urgently. He gave the smallest nod. Every word. Her stomach lurched. What if someone saw? Then we'll deal with it, Daniel said firmly. Back home, Sarah paced the living room while Daniel connected his phone to the laptop. The recording played, voices muffled at first, then clear. Mrs. Caldwell, we must show consistency. Daniel, consistency? Or favoritism? Mrs. Caldwell, ignore this. Let's move on. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. Hearing it replayed sent chills down her spine. That's her, Daniel said. Proof she bends the rules. Proof she silences anyone who questions her. Sarah sat slowly on the couch, her body trembling. What are you going to do with it? Daniel stared at the screen, his face hard. I'm going to show everyone. Chapter 5 Whispers in the Dark. The next morning, Sarah couldn't shake the unease twisting in her stomach. Daniel moved with quiet determination, setting his laptop on the dining table. Look, he said, clicking play again. Mrs. Caldwell's clipped voice echoed through the speakers. We must show consistency. No exceptions. Then Daniel's voice cut in. Consistency? Or favoritism? The sound of it chilled Sarah all over again. Daniel, she whispered, if you share this, everyone will know. That's the point, he said sharply. They'll see what she really is. A bully in power. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. She'll come after us harder. He looked at her, steady, unflinching. Then let her. At least this time, we won't be silent. That evening, Daniel uploaded the audio to a private folder. He drafted an email to the neighbors. Sarah stood behind him, wringing her hands. Please don't hit send, she begged. He paused, finger hovering over the mouse. Not yet, he said. Timing matters. If I send it too early, she'll twist the story. I need to catch her off guard. Sarah sagged in relief, though only slightly. So you'll wait? Yes, he said, leaning back. But once the moment comes, it's going out. 2 days later, Sarah went out to water her flowers. She noticed 2 neighbors across the street whispering, their eyes darting toward her. When she met their gaze, they quickly looked away. Her stomach sank. They know something. That afternoon, Daniel came home with furrowed brows. Jenkins pulled me aside, he said. The board guy. Yeah. He asked if I had been recording the meeting. Sarah froze, the watering can still in her hand. What did you say? I denied it, Daniel replied. But the way he asked, like he already knew. Sarah's throat went dry. If word spreads. Then we move faster, Daniel cut in. His voice was firm, but his jaw was tight. We can't back down now. That night, the phone rang. Sarah answered, her voice cautious. "Hello?" A pause. Then Mrs. Caldwell's voice, smooth but sharp. "Sarah. I hear your husband has been busy." Sarah's heart stopped. "I don't know what you mean," she whispered. "Oh, I think you do," Caldwell said softly. "Recording board meetings without consent is a violation of state law. Very serious. People have faced lawsuits for less." Sarah gripped the phone tighter, her knees weak. "We didn't." "Tell Daniel," Caldwell interrupted, "that games like this have consequences. He should think very carefully before making mistakes he can't undo." The line went dead. When Sarah told Daniel, his eyes darkened. "She knows. Someone tipped her off. She threatened you, Daniel. She'll sue us. She'll ruin us." He stepped closer, his voice low, controlled. "Good. That means she's scared." Sarah's voice broke. "I'm scared." Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "I won't let her hurt you. Trust me." But Sarah's eyes stayed open in the dark that night, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding. The next morning, as Daniel left for work, Sarah peeked outside. A black SUV was parked across the street. Inside, a figure sat still, staring at their house. Sarah's breath caught. She pulled the curtains shut quickly, her hands trembling. When Daniel returned that evening, she told him. "They're watching us," she whispered. "She's watching." Daniel's face hardened, his jaw tight. "Then it's time," he said. He opened his laptop, clicked into the email draft, and added the audio file. Sarah grabbed his hand. "Wait, are you sure?" Daniel looked at her with fire in his eyes. "Yes. She wants to scare us silent. But tonight, the neighborhood hears the truth." He pressed send. Chapter 6. The neighborhood erupts. The neighborhood awoke differently that morning. Phones buzzed, inboxes pinged, whispers spread like fire on dry grass. The audio had escaped. Inside their house, Sarah stood frozen by the window. She watched as neighbors gathered in little clusters across driveways. Heads leaned close. Eyes flicked toward her house, then away. "They heard it," she whispered. Daniel, still at the dining table with his laptop open, didn't look up. "Good. Let them hear." Sarah turned on him. "No, you don't understand. They're looking at us. Like we just started a war." Daniel's eyes met hers finally. They were steady, but she could see the storm building inside him. "Sarah, we did start a war." By afternoon, the doorbell rang. Sarah jumped. Daniel answered. It was Mr. Jenkins, the board member who had spoken cautiously at the last meeting. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes darting nervously around the street before he stepped inside. "You shouldn't have sent that," he hissed. Daniel crossed his arms. "Why?" "Because it shows the truth." Jenkins wiped sweat from his forehead. "You don't understand. Caldwell won't let this slide. She'll destroy you in court. She'll call it defamation, illegal recording, whatever she can. She's been bending the rules for years," Daniel shot back. "Now people know." Jenkins lowered his voice. "Some people are angry. Not just at her. At you. They think you made the HOA look weak. They think you'll drag everyone into a fight they didn't ask for." Sarah stepped in, her voice trembling. "So what do we do? Just bow down to her again?" Jenkins looked at her, then at Daniel. His voice cracked. "You don't know Caldwell like I do. She doesn't forgive. She punishes." He left quickly, almost running back to his car. Sarah closed the door slowly, her hand shaking. "Daniel." He didn't answer. He stared at the door, jaw clenched. That evening, the first knock came. It was Mrs. Green, the neighbor with the rose garden. She clutched her phone like a weapon. "I heard it," she said breathlessly. "I always knew Caldwell was crooked. Thank you." Before Sarah could reply, another knock came. Mr. Wilson, the one with tools scattered across his driveway. He was red-faced. "What the hell, Daniel? You put a target on all of us. Now she's gonna tighten every rule in the book." Within an hour, their porch was a revolving door. Some neighbors thanked them, whispering words like, Finally, and about time. Others shouted, accusing Daniel of dragging the neighborhood into chaos. By the time the last angry voice faded, Sarah sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. "Half of them hate us," she whispered. Daniel sat beside her, shoulders heavy but eyes burning. "Half of them are awake now. That's more than yesterday." The next day, Caldwell made her move. An envelope was taped to their front door. Inside was an official letter from the HOA board. Notice of hearing alleged misconduct. Mandatory appearance required. The words blurred in Sarah's vision. "She's coming for us." Daniel read silently, his face unreadable. Then he folded the paper neatly and placed it on the table. "Good," he said coldly. "She wants a fight. Now she'll get one." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep again. She walked to the kitchen for water, only to freeze at the window. The black SUV was back, parked in the same spot. Engine off. No lights. Someone was inside, watching. Her breath caught in her throat. She hurried to the bedroom, shaking Daniel awake. "It's there again," she whispered. "The car. It's watching us." Daniel sat up quickly, grabbed his phone, and walked to the front door. He yanked it open, stepping out into the cool night. The SUV started instantly, headlights blinding. It rolled forward, slow and deliberate, then sped off down the street. Sarah clutched his arm. "Who is that?" Daniel's jaw was stone. "Caldwell's not just playing board games anymore." Chapter 7 of the hearing. The community hall smelled of coffee and old carpet. Folding chairs filled the room, every seat taken. Neighbors whispered, eyes darting between Sarah, Daniel, and the head table where Mrs. Caldwell sat like a queen on her throne. Sarah's palms were damp. She clutched Daniel's hand tightly, but he didn't flinch. He sat tall, his face unreadable. Mrs. Caldwell tapped her gavel once. Crack. The room silenced. "This special hearing," she began, "has been called to address a matter of grave misconduct." A homeowner, her eyes flicked toward Daniel, secretly recorded a private board meeting. "An act both unlawful and dangerous to our community." Whispers erupted. Sarah felt her stomach twist. Daniel stood before Caldwell could continue. His voice was calm but strong. "It wasn't unlawful. The meeting was public. Everyone had the right to hear what was said." Mrs. Caldwell's smile was thin, sharp. "Do you deny making the recording?" Daniel's eyes met hers directly. "No." Gasps filled the hall. Sarah's nails dug into her palm. "Why admit it so boldly?" Mrs. Caldwell leaned forward, savoring the moment. "Then you confess. You endangered this neighborhood. You spread lies." "They weren't lies," Daniel cut in, his voice louder now. "They were your own words. Words that proved you find some people and ignore others. Words that showed your power isn't about rules, it's about control." The hall stirred with restless energy. Some neighbors nodded, others shook their heads. Mrs. Caldwell slammed her gavel. "Crack. Enough. Mr. Parker, your reckless actions have damaged this community's trust. The board has authority to impose severe penalties. Fines. Even foreclosure proceedings." Sarah's breath caught. "Foreclosure? Our home?" Daniel stepped closer to the table, his jaw set. "You think threats scare me? You've been using fear to silence people for years. But not anymore." Mrs. Caldwell's eyes glittered. "Careful, Mr. Parker. Pride has consequences." A board member, Jenkins, cleared his throat nervously. "Perhaps we should hear the recording again. Let everyone decide for themselves." The crowd buzzed. Caldwell shot Jenkins a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Daniel didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and set it on the microphone stand. Mrs. Caldwell's own voice filled the hall. "We must show consistency. No exceptions." Daniel's reply echoed, "Consistency? Or favoritism?" And then Caldwell's icy command, "Ignore this. Let's move on." The room exploded in noise. Some shouted, some clapped, others argued fiercely. Sarah felt dizzy. For a moment it seemed like Daniel had won. The truth was out. But then Mrs. Caldwell rose to her feet. Her smile was gone. Her voice was cold steel. Very well. If this is how you want it, Mr. Parker, then the board will vote tonight. Not just on your misconduct, but on removing you and your wife from this neighborhood entirely. The room gasped. Sarah's knees buckled. Remove us, she whispered. Daniel reached for her hand, steadying her. His eyes never left Caldwell. On what grounds? On the grounds, Caldwell said smoothly, that you are a danger to the harmony of this community. She lifted her gavel high. The vote begins now. Chapter 8 of the vote. The gavel struck the table again. Crack. All in favor of removing the Parkers from this community, raise your hand, Mrs. Caldwell declared. Silence hung heavy, thicker than air. Sarah's chest tightened as the first hand rose. Mr. Wilson. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. Of course him. Then another hand. Mrs. Torres. Then Mr. Lee. One by one, fingers lifted like blades cutting through Sarah's heart. She gripped Daniel's sleeve. Daniel! He whispered back, steady but low, don't look at them. Look at me. But Sarah couldn't stop. Every raised hand felt like another stone dragging them under. Count them, Mrs. Caldwell said smoothly. A board member tallied. 7 in favor. Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. 7. Already more than she expected. And against? Caldwell asked. Hands rose hesitantly. Fewer. Jenkins raised his hand, but his eyes darted nervously toward Caldwell as if he regretted it already. A few neighbors followed, but the number was small. The tally came. 4 against. Gasps and whispers spread across the hall. Sarah's stomach dropped. Daniel's voice cut through the noise. This isn't justice. This is fear. Mrs. Caldwell smiled, slow and deliberate. Fear or order? Order this neighborhood desperately needs. She raised the gavel again. The motion passes. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others shouting. Sarah stood frozen. Passes? That's it? We're out? Daniel stepped forward, his voice like thunder. You can't just throw families out because they challenge you. Caldwell's gaze locked on him. This board has authority. The fines you ignored, the rules you mocked, the disruption you caused, grounds enough for removal. You brought this on yourself. On us, Sarah whispered, her knees weak. She means both of us. Daniel's hand gripped hers firm. We're not leaving. The room stilled at his defiance. Caldwell's smile sharpened. Then we'll see you in court. But mark my words, Mr. Parker, you will regret this battle. The meeting ended in chaos. Neighbors split down the middle, some avoiding eye contact, others throwing sharp words as they filed out. Sarah and Daniel sat in their car in silence for a long time. The hall lights glowed behind them, and Caldwell's silhouette lingered in the doorway, watching like a shadow that refused to leave. Finally Sarah whispered, Daniel, what if she wins? He turned the key in the ignition, his face hard, his jaw clenched. Then I'll make sure the whole town knows who she really is. Sarah looked at him, her eyes wet. And if she destroys us first? The headlights cut across the dark road as the car pulled away. Daniel's voice was quiet, but unshakable. Then we fight harder. Later that night, back home, Sarah stepped out onto the porch for air. The street was too quiet. The black SUV was there again, parked at the corner, engine running low. Her breath caught. She backed toward the door. The SUV's headlights suddenly flicked on, bright, blinding. Sarah gasped, her hand trembling on the doorknob. Daniel, she cried. He rushed out, but by the time he did, the SUV sped off, tires screeching against the pavement. They stood together in the cold night air, hearts pounding. Sarah's voice shook. It's not just Caldwell. Someone's watching us. Daniel stared after the taillights fading into the distance, his fists clenched. She's not just playing HOA games anymore. Chapter 9. Into the courtroom. The courthouse loomed gray and heavy, its stone steps slick from early rain. Sarah gripped Daniel's arm as they climbed, her knees weak. I don't belong here, she whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand. Neither does Caldwell. But here we are. Inside, the hallway buzzed with lawyers, papers shuffling, heels clicking. It smelled faintly of old wood and tension. Sarah's stomach churned. When they entered the courtroom, Mrs. Caldwell was already there. She sat at the plaintiff's table in a navy suit, her posture rigid, her expression calm and smug. Her lawyer, a sharp man with silver hair, whispered in her ear. Caldwell looked over and locked eyes with Sarah. That smile, thin, poisonous, spread across her face. Sarah looked away quickly, her hands trembling. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Case number 4572, the clerk announced. Homeowners Association versus Daniel and Sarah Parker. Sarah's throat closed. Hearing their names like that, cold and official, made it all too real. Caldwell's lawyer began first. He spoke with authority, words rolling like practiced daggers. Your Honor, this case is simple. The defendants willfully recorded a private board meeting without consent. They spread that recording in an attempt to defame Mrs. Caldwell and destabilize the association. Their actions have caused chaos, fear, and division among homeowners. We ask the court to enforce the HOA's bylaws, through fines, damages, and, if necessary, removal from the property. Sarah's pulse thundered. Removal. Again. Always removal. Daniel stood slowly, calm but fierce. Your Honor, that meeting was not private. It was open to the community. Anyone could attend. I recorded it because the board has been applying rules unfairly, punishing some and ignoring others. My wife was fined $500 for flowers. Meanwhile, other yards violate rules daily with no penalty. The recording proves favoritism. It proves corruption. He paused, his eyes sweeping the courtroom. We didn't cause chaos. We revealed the truth. The judge's face gave nothing away. During recess, Sarah sat on a hard wooden bench outside the courtroom, her hands clasped so tight they hurt. Daniel, she whispered, what if the judge believes her? He won't, Daniel said firmly. But his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. At that moment Jenkins appeared. He was sweating, his tie crooked. He sat beside Daniel, glancing nervously around. I shouldn't be here, he muttered. Then why are you? Daniel asked. Jenkins leaned closer. Because Caldwell isn't just bending rules. She's stealing. Sarah's head snapped toward him. What? Jenkins swallowed hard. The HOA fees. Dues. She moves money around, says it's for maintenance projects, but I've seen the accounts. Tens of thousands missing. Daniel's jaw tightened. Do you have proof? Jenkins nodded quickly. I can get it. Bank statements, emails. But if she finds out I talked... He cut himself off, glancing at the hallway door like someone might be listening. Sarah's heart pounded. Why are you helping us? His voice broke. Because I'm tired of being afraid. The second half of the hearing dragged on, but Daniel's mind was elsewhere. Jenkins's words echoed in his head. Tens of thousands missing. When Caldwell's lawyer presented another stack of violations, Daniel barely heard. When Sarah gripped his arm, he didn't move. Finally, the judge raised his hand. Enough for today. I'll review evidence and reconvene next week. The gavel fell. The sound cracked like thunder. Court was over, for now. Outside, the air was sharp, the sky darkening. Caldwell exited with her lawyer, pausing just long enough to glance at Daniel and Sarah. Her smile was gone this time. Her eyes were cold. You've made a mistake, she said quietly. Both of you. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low, steady. We're not afraid of you. Caldwell tilted her head, almost pitying. Then you're not as smart as I thought. She turned and walked away, heels clicking like hammers on stone. That night, at home, Daniel spread papers across the dining table. He couldn't eat, couldn't rest. Daniel, Sarah whispered, what are you doing? Jenkins has proof. If we get those records, this isn't just about flowers or fines anymore. It's about fraud. Sarah's chest tightened. That means police. Investigations. Headlines. Exactly, Daniel said, his eyes locked on the papers before him. She wants to destroy us in court? Fine. But if Jenkins is right, Caldwell could lose everything. He looked up at Sarah, fire in his eyes. Tomorrow we get the proof. Chapter 10 of The Secret Meeting. The next evening, Daniel parked his truck 2 blocks from the small diner on the edge of town. Neon lights buzzed in the window, casting a faint glow on the empty street. Sarah sat beside him, her hands clenched together. What if this is a trap? Daniel shook his head. Jenkins wouldn't risk reaching out unless he was serious. Sarah glanced toward the diner door. But if Caldwell finds out? She already knows too much, Daniel interrupted softly. Tonight we level the field. Inside, the diner smelled of grease and old coffee. A jukebox hummed in the corner, but no music played. Only 2 waitresses worked the counter, their tired voices blending with the sizzle of the grill. Jenkins sat in a booth at the back, his shoulders hunched, a briefcase on the seat beside him. His face was pale, his tie loose. When Daniel and Sarah approached, he looked up quickly, fear in his eyes. You came. Daniel slid into the booth across from him. You said you had proof. Jenkins glanced around nervously, then pulled the briefcase closer. Bank statements, transfer logs, even an email from Caldwell to the treasurer. Money meant for community repairs, siphoned into accounts under her name. Sarah's heart hammered. How much? Almost 80,000, Jenkins whispered. Gone. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. This could bury her. Jenkins's hand trembled as he pushed the briefcase across the table. Take it. But if she finds out I gave this to you, he trailed off, his lips pressed tight. The waitress stopped by their table with coffee. Jenkins froze, his eyes fixed on the window. Daniel followed his gaze. Outside, headlights flashed once. A car idled across the street. Dark windows. Sarah's chest tightened. It's them. Jenkins swallowed hard. I shouldn't have come. She has people watching me. Daniel reached for the briefcase. Then let us take it. We'll use it in court. But Jenkins didn't let go. His eyes darted to the door, then back to Daniel. Promise me, if anything happens to me, you'll expose her. Sarah's blood ran cold. Don't talk like that. Jenkins's hand trembled harder. Finally, he released the briefcase. Daniel gripped it tight. We'll end this. I swear. The diner door opened. A man in a dark coat stepped inside. He didn't order. He didn't sit. He just stood by the counter, eyes sweeping the room. Jenkins stiffened. His face drained of color. That's one of Caldwell's men. Daniel's jaw clenched. Sarah, stay close. The man's gaze lingered on their booth. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and walked back outside. A chill spread through Sarah's body. He was checking if we're here. Jenkins pressed his hands to his face. She knows. She knows. Daniel stood, sliding the briefcase under his arm. We need to leave. Now. They moved quickly out the diner door, the night air sharp against their skin. The car across the street revved its engine. Headlights blinded them. Daniel! Sarah gasped. He shoved her toward the truck. Get in! The black sedan pulled forward slowly, menacingly, blocking their path. Jenkins stumbled backward, panic in his eyes. She sent them for me. The sedan's door cracked open. A shadow stepped out. Go! Daniel shouted, shoving Sarah into the passenger seat. He threw the briefcase inside and ran around to the driver's side. But before he could start the engine, another car screeched around the corner, cutting them off from behind. They were trapped. Chapter 11 of The Escape. Engines roared on both sides of the street. The black sedan in front edged closer, its headlights burning into Daniel's eyes. Behind them, the second car blocked the only exit. Sarah clutched the briefcase tight. Daniel, we're trapped. Daniel's jaw tightened. Not yet. Jenkins trembled in the back seat, his voice breaking. They'll kill me if they get this proof. Then hold on, Daniel muttered, slamming the truck into reverse. The tires screeched, smoke rising as the truck shot backward. The sedan behind them honked, but Daniel jerked the wheel, ramming the rear bumper of the blocking car. Metal crunched, sparks flew, and the truck forced a narrow gap. "Go! Go!" Sarah screamed. Daniel floored it. The truck tore down the side street, bouncing over potholes. Behind them, engines roared again. Headlights swung as both sedans gave chase. Inside the truck, the air was thick with fear. Sarah gripped the dashboard, her knuckles white. "They're gaining." Daniel's eyes flicked to the mirror. "Not if I know these streets better than they do." Jenkins leaned forward, his voice frantic. "Caldwell has people everywhere. Even the police." "Then we don't stop," Daniel snapped. The chase tore through the sleeping town. Red lights blurred past. Horns blared as the truck sped through intersections. Sarah glanced back. The sedans were close, shadows inside barely visible. One of the windows rolled down. A flash. Glass shattered beside Sarah's head. She screamed, ducking low. "They're shooting!" Daniel swerved hard, the truck fishtailing. "Stay down!" Jenkins cowered, his arms over his head. "She won't stop, she'll kill all of us!" Another shot rang out, tearing through the side mirror. Daniel's face was set, calm but deadly focused. "They want the briefcase," he muttered. "That means we keep it at all costs." Ahead, the road split, one way to the highway, the other down toward the dark, winding river road. Daniel made his choice. He yanked the wheelwright, speeding down the narrow road lined with trees. The sedans followed, engines howling in the night. The truck bounced violently, gravel spraying. Sarah clutched the briefcase to her chest, every bump threatening to rip it from her grip. "Where are you going?" she cried. Daniel's voice was steady. "Somewhere they can't control us." The river came into view, silver under the moonlight. Behind them, the first sedan closed in, bumper nearly touching theirs. A shadow leaned out the window, a gun glinting in the dark. Daniel slammed the brakes. The sedan smashed into the truck's rear, sending sparks flying. But the sudden stop threw the gunman off balance. His shot went wide into the trees. Daniel stomped the gas again, throwing the truck forward, the sedan spinning in the gravel. Sarah gasped, "That won't hold them long." "No," Daniel growled. "But it bought us seconds." Then, without warning, another car appeared ahead. Daniel swore under his breath. "She's boxed us in again." The sedan blocked the road near the river bend. Lights blazed, blinding. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears. "We're cornered." The truck skidded, trapped between headlights front and back. Jenkins shook his head, sweat dripping down his temple. "It's over. Give them the briefcase." Daniel turned to him sharply. "If we hand this over, Sarah pays the price. We all do. She'll bury us alive." Sarah's voice cracked. "So what now?" Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel. His eyes flicked toward the river's edge, the steep drop just beyond the guardrail. Jenkins followed his gaze, his face going pale. "You're not serious." Daniel's voice was low, steady. "It's the only way." Sarah's breath caught. "Daniel, no." The sedans inched closer, engines growling. Shadows moved inside, preparing to strike. Daniel pressed the accelerator halfway, the truck inching toward the guardrail. Sarah's heart pounded so hard it hurt. Jenkins shouted, "You'll kill us all." Daniel's eyes were locked forward, unblinking. "No," he said quietly. "I'll give us a chance." The truck's tires squealed, edging closer to the drop. The headlights closed in, surrounding them. Daniel whispered, "Hold on." And then, he floored it. The truck smashed through the guardrail, wood and metal snapping like twigs. For a split second, time froze, the headlights behind them glaring, Sarah's scream piercing the night, Jenkins's cry of terror echoing. Then the truck plunged into the dark, rushing air above the river. Chapter 12: The River's Secret. The truck hit the water with a violent crash. Cold black waves swallowed it whole, glass shattering, metal screaming. Sarah gasped as icy water surged in through the broken windows. She clawed at the seatbelt, her lungs already burning. "Daniel!" she cried, her voice muffled by rushing water. Daniel fought the steering wheel, forcing the window down further. "Out! Now!" Jenkins thrashed in the back seat, his briefcase floating away from him. "I can't, help me!" Sarah's fingers found the buckle. She shoved herself free, the river dragging at her clothes. She grabbed the briefcase before it slipped past, hugging it tight even as the current tried to tear it from her arms. Daniel yanked her toward the open window. "Go, Sarah! Swim!" Her body hit the freezing water like a knife to the chest. She kicked hard, desperate for air. Behind her, Jenkins's scream cut short as the truck sank deeper. Daniel pulled him out by the collar, both men breaking the surface seconds later. The three of them gasped, coughing, waves slapping their faces. Sarah held the briefcase high. "I still have it." Daniel nodded, teeth chattering. "Keep it above water. Don't let go." The current dragged them downstream, battering them against hidden rocks. Sarah's arms ached, but she refused to loosen her grip. The briefcase was heavy, but it was their only weapon. Behind them, headlights glared from the riverbank. Caldwell's men had stopped their cars. Silhouettes gathered on the ridge, watching. Jenkins choked out, "They're not following us?" Daniel spat river water. "Not yet. They'll wait. She thinks the river will finish us." Sarah's breath came ragged. "Then we prove her wrong." Finally, the current shoved them into a shallow bend. Daniel dragged Sarah to the muddy shore, hauling her up by the arms. Jenkins collapsed beside them, coughing so hard his whole body shook. Sarah collapsed, clutching the briefcase against her chest, shaking with exhaustion. Daniel bent over her, his face pale but fierce. "You held on." Her lips trembled. "I wasn't letting her win." Jenkins groaned, pushing himself upright. "You don't understand. If Caldwell finds out I gave you this." Daniel cut him off, his voice sharp. "She already knows." A branch snapped in the woods behind them. Sarah froze. "Did you hear that?" Daniel spun toward the sound, fists clenched. From the darkness, a figure emerged. Not Caldwell's men. A neighbor. Mrs. Alvarez, the quiet widow from the corner lot, stepped into the moonlight. Her face was grim, her jacket pulled tight. Sarah whispered, stunned, "What are you doing here?" Mrs. Alvarez's eyes dropped to the briefcase in Sarah's arms. Then she looked back up, her expression heavy. "You need to listen carefully," she said softly. "Caldwell isn't working alone. Half the board is in on it. That's why no one ever fights her." Daniel's shoulders stiffened. "You're saying the whole HOA?" Mrs. Alvarez nodded slowly. "It's bigger than you think. If you take her down, others will fall with her. And they won't go quietly." The river gurgled behind them, carrying away the last bubbles of their sunken truck. Sarah clutched the briefcase tighter. "So what do we do now?" Mrs. Alvarez's voice dropped to a whisper. "You hide. You keep that evidence safe. And when the time is right, you use it." Jenkins shook his head, his voice hoarse. "You don't understand. Caldwell has already set things in motion. She won't wait for a trial. She'll come for us before morning." The woods fell silent. The air grew colder, heavier. Sarah met Daniel's eyes. His face was wet and bruised, but his voice was steady. "Then we won't wait either. If you love watching my video, then make sure to subscribe and like my video.